When people picture Oregon, they often think of towering forests, rugged coastlines, and snow-capped mountains. It's a state that has long carried a reputation for natural beauty and a relaxed pace of life. For many, moving here feels like the dream. Fresh air, charming small towns, and access to the outdoors right outside your door. It's no wonder that Oregon has drawn home buyers for decades. Whether they're looking for retirement comfort, an escape from crowded cities, or simply a place to settle down surrounded by scenery. But here's the part that often gets overlooked. Not every city in Oregon is a smart place to buy a home. Beneath the postcard image, the housing market in many communities comes with real risks. Risks that in 2025 are more important than ever to recognize. Buying a house is one of the biggest financial decisions you can make, and choosing the wrong city can mean overpaying for a property that doesn't hold its value, struggling with high insurance or maintenance costs, or watching your investment stagnate in a market that never really takes off. Across Oregon, certain cities are showing warning signs. Some have seen prices soar far beyond what local incomes can support, creating the danger of a market correction. Others are grappling with weak job opportunities, limited infrastructure, or an economy too dependent on one industry. A few face environmental challenges, like wildfire risk, flooding, or water shortages that push up the cost of living. And then there are the places where growth has outpaced resources, where population booms have led to congestion, rising costs, and neighborhoods that feel stretched to their limit. For buyers, these challenges show up in everyday life. It might mean a mortgage that feels too heavy, insurance premiums that jump year after year, or a home that doesn't gain the value you expected. It might mean living in a city where repairs, upgrades, and utilities cost far more than you planned for. And in the worst cases, it can mean buying into a community that simply isn't built to support long-term stability. In today's video, we're breaking down 10 cities in Oregon where you do not want to buy a house in 2025. We'll look at what makes each one risky, from soaring prices to environmental hazards, and explain why these places may not deliver the lifestyle or investment value you're hoping for. By the end, you'll see that buying in Oregon isn't just about the view outside your window. It's about whether the city itself can support the future you're building. 1. Portland. Portland has long been considered Oregon's flagship city, a cultural hub with trendy restaurants, craft breweries, and a lifestyle that blends urban living with easy access to nature. For years, it was one of the most desirable places in the Pacific Northwest to buy a home, drawing people from across the country. But in 2025, Portland presents some of the biggest red flags for home buyers in the entire state. The first issue is affordability. Home prices in Portland have climbed far beyond what many local salaries can support. While wages in certain industries have grown, they haven't kept pace with the housing market. Buyers who jump in today risk locking themselves into large mortgages in a market that's showing signs of cooling. That means if prices dip, homeowners could be left with a property worth less than what they paid. Another challenge comes from the cost of living beyond the mortgage. Property taxes and utilities in Portland are higher than in many other parts of Oregon, and maintenance costs often rise faster in older neighborhoods with aging infrastructure. For families, this means budgeting more just to keep a home running smoothly. There are also lifestyle factors to consider. Portland is growing rapidly, but growth has outpaced infrastructure in many areas. Traffic congestion is a daily frustration. Public transportation is stretched thin, and many neighborhoods feel the strain of rapid expansion. Add to this a higher crime rate compared to smaller Oregon cities, and it becomes clear that Portland isn't the safe bet it once was. For buyers in 2025, Portland may still look attractive on the surface, but beneath the culture and charm lies a housing market that's overpriced, overburdened, and full of long-term risks. 2. Eugene. Eugene is often seen as a smaller, more relaxed alternative to Portland. Known as the home of the University of Oregon, it carries a reputation as a college town with plenty of charm, bike-friendly streets, vibrant arts, and a strong sense of community. At first glance, Eugene seems like the perfect balance of affordability and livability. But when it comes to buying a house here in 2025, the picture is more complicated. One of the biggest issues is that Eugene's housing market has been driven heavily by student demand. With tens of thousands of college students needing rentals each year, many homes are purchased as investment properties which drives up prices. This creates volatility. When the rental market shifts or enrollment drops, property values can stagnate or even fall. That leaves homeowners vulnerable in a market that doesn't always move in predictable ways. Another concern is the job market. Outside of the university and healthcare, Eugene doesn't have the same economic diversity as larger cities. While there are some opportunities in tech and manufacturing, growth has been modest. That means the housing prices, which have soared in recent years, aren't well supported by wage growth. For buyers, this mismatch can create long-term affordability problems. On top of that, Eugene struggles with infrastructure challenges. Congestion is increasing, public services feel stretched, and new developments sometimes lack the resources to keep up with demand. Residents also face higher insurance costs due to wildfire risks in the surrounding areas. For families or investors considering Eugene, it's important to recognize that the city's housing market is tied closely to the university and to outside demand. Without strong, broad-based economic growth, buying a home here in 2025 could mean paying too much for a property in a market that lacks stability. 3. Salem, Oregon's capital city, has often been overshadowed by Portland's cultural presence and Eugene's college town vibe. But as housing prices skyrocketed elsewhere, Salem became a natural fallback for many buyers seeking affordability. On paper, it looks like a reasonable compromise. Smaller than Portland, less expensive than Eugene, yet still central. However, in 2025, buying a home in Salem comes with a set of risks that every buyer should think twice about. The first problem is that Salem's affordability advantage is starting to fade. As more people moved here to escape Portland's high prices, demand surged, and home values rose quickly. But this demand has outpaced the city's economic base. Salem's job market is heavily reliant on government positions and local services, which don't provide the same wage growth or stability as the industries driving housing booms in other cities. Without a strong economic foundation, rising home prices in Salem begin to look unsustainable. Another concern is the city's infrastructure. Roads and public transportation options haven't kept pace with growth, leaving commuters facing daily headaches. For those who work in Portland but live in Salem, the long drive adds both cost and frustration. This hidden expense makes homeownership here less attractive than it appears at first glance. There's also the issue of neighborhood variability. While some areas are family-friendly and well-kept, others struggle with higher crime rates and limited amenities. That inconsistency can make it difficult for buyers to feel confident their investment will appreciate in value. In short, Salem presents itself as the middle ground between Oregon's larger cities. But in 2025, this middle ground feels shaky. Rising prices without economic strength, inconsistent neighborhoods, and infrastructure that lags behind growth all suggest that Salem may not deliver the long-term value buyers expect. 4. Bend. Bend has transformed over the past 2 decades from a quiet mountain town into one of Oregon's most talked-about destinations. Surrounded by scenic landscapes, outdoor recreation, and a growing craft beer scene, it's marketed as the perfect blend of natural beauty and modern living. But while the lifestyle might sound appealing, Bend's housing market in 2025 poses significant risks for buyers. The most obvious problem is cost. Bend has some of the highest housing prices in the entire state, even surpassing Portland in certain neighborhoods. The demand comes not only from locals but also from out-of-state buyers, many of whom see Bend as a vacation or retirement destination. This influx of wealth has driven prices far beyond what most local residents can reasonably afford. For first-time buyers or families, breaking into this market is extremely difficult and financially risky. Another issue is volatility. Because Bend's popularity is tied so heavily to lifestyle appeal and tourism, the housing market here is especially sensitive to economic downturns. When the broader economy struggles, second home buyers and investors often pull back, which can cause property values to decline sharply. That makes Bend a particularly risky place to buy if you're hoping for long-term stability. Infrastructure is also a growing problem. Rapid development has put pressure on local roads, schools, and utilities, while the city struggles to keep up with demand. Add in higher living costs across the board. Everything from groceries to services tends to be more expensive in Bend, and homeownership becomes an even heavier financial burden. For buyers in 2025, Bend may look like paradise on the surface, but beneath the mountain views and outdoor lifestyle lies a market that's overpriced, volatile, and vulnerable. It's a reminder that beauty doesn't always equal security when it comes to real estate. 5. Medford. Medford, located in southern Oregon's Rogue Valley, has long been known for its warm climate, proximity to outdoor recreation, and role as the region's commercial hub. For many years, it was considered an affordable alternative to the more expensive northern cities. But in 2025, buying a home in Medford comes with risks that can't be ignored. The biggest concern is environmental. Medford has become increasingly vulnerable to wildfires. The surrounding dry landscape, combined with hot summers, makes this area one of the most fire-prone regions in the state. That has driven up the cost of homeowners insurance dramatically, with some providers even pulling out of the market. For buyers, that means unpredictable expenses on top of an already significant mortgage. Housing affordability is another red flag. Prices in Medford have climbed steeply as more people moved in during the last decade, seeking both affordability and lifestyle appeal. But local wages haven't kept up, creating a mismatch between income and housing costs. For families or first-time buyers, this makes home ownership a financial strain that could easily lead to overextension. There are also concerns about the local economy. While Medford serves as a healthcare and retail center for the region, it doesn't have the same diverse job base as cities further north. This lack of diversity leaves the housing market exposed to fluctuations when key industries face downturns. On the surface, Medford seems like an attractive choice with its sunshine and access to nature. But when you factor in wildfire risks, rising insurance premiums, and an economy that lacks stability, the city becomes a much riskier bet for homebuyers in 2025. 6. Corvallis. Corvallis is often described as a charming college town, home to Oregon State University, and a lively community centered around academics, research, and small-town life. At first glance, it appears to offer stability. After all, college towns usually benefit from a steady flow of students and faculty. But when it comes to buying a home in 2025, Corvallis has issues that make it less than ideal. The first challenge is price. Despite being smaller than Portland or Eugene, Corvallis has some of the highest housing costs in Oregon. The presence of the university and a limited supply of housing keep prices elevated year-round. For families or individuals not connected to the university, competing in this market can feel impossible. Another issue is volatility. College towns depend heavily on the academic calendar and university presence. While Oregon State is a stable institution, any shifts in enrollment, funding, or student housing policies can have a significant impact on the local housing market. This creates an added layer of uncertainty that buyers might not anticipate. Corvallis also suffers from limited inventory. The city has strict zoning and limited available land for development, which means supply rarely keeps up with demand. This pushes prices even higher and reduces options for those looking to buy. It also makes the market less flexible, leaving buyers stuck with fewer choices and less bargaining power. Finally, the cost of living in Corvallis is noticeably higher than surrounding areas. Everyday expenses, from groceries to services, are inflated by the strong demand created by the university population. This makes homeownership here more expensive than it appears on paper. While Corvallis has charm and academic appeal, the combination of sky-high prices, limited housing, and market volatility tied to the university make it one of the riskiest places to buy a house in Oregon in 2025. 7. Springfield. Springfield sits right next to Eugene, and while it doesn't get the same attention as its larger neighbor, it has been growing rapidly in recent years. For many buyers, Springfield looks like the more affordable way to live near Eugene without paying the same premium prices. But in 2025, this affordability comes with major risks. The first concern is infrastructure. Springfield has expanded quickly, but its roads, utilities, and public services haven't fully kept up with demand. New neighborhoods often feel disconnected from the city's core, and daily commuting can be slow and frustrating. Buyers who expect a smooth suburban lifestyle often find the reality to be more costly and inconvenient. Another issue is neighborhood variability. While some parts of Springfield have improved and modernized, others still struggle with limited investment and fewer amenities. This creates uneven property values across the city. Buyers can end up in areas where appreciation is slow or where surrounding conditions drag down the long-term value of their home. Springfield's economy also lacks diversity. Many residents commute into Eugene or depend on service sector jobs that don't offer significant wage growth. This economic gap means that while housing prices have been rising, local incomes have not. For buyers, that makes ownership in Springfield more financially precarious. Finally, the perception of Springfield as Eugene's cheaper neighbor comes with its own drawback. Property values here are closely tied to Eugene's market. If Eugene cools or corrects, Springfield is likely to feel those effects even harder. That creates additional volatility for anyone buying in 2025. On the surface, Springfield may look like an affordable entry point into Oregon's housing market, but with weak infrastructure, uneven neighborhoods, and economic fragility, it's not the safe bet many buyers assume. 8. Grants Pass. Grants Pass, another southern Oregon city, has often been marketed as a quieter, more affordable alternative to Medford. Nestled along the Rogue River, it attracts those seeking small-town charm, outdoor living, and a slower pace of life. But in 2025, Grants Pass has become one of the most concerning places to buy a house in Oregon. The first red flag is economic weakness. Grants Pass lacks the job diversity of larger cities. Its economy relies heavily on small businesses, tourism, and service sector jobs, which are not always stable. Without a strong employment base, the housing market here struggles to maintain long-term momentum. This makes property values more vulnerable during economic downturns. Another major issue is housing quality. Grants Pass has an older housing stock, with many homes requiring extensive maintenance or upgrades. Buyers often underestimate the costs of bringing these properties up to modern standards, leaving them with unexpected expenses after purchase. Combined with limited local wages, this creates financial strain for many households. Environmental risk is also a growing concern. Like Medford, Grants Pass faces significant wildfire threats due to its dry summers and surrounding forested areas. Insurance premiums are climbing, and in some cases, coverage is harder to secure. These hidden costs can turn what looks like an affordable home into a financial burden. While Grants Pass still offers natural beauty and a quieter lifestyle, the risks outweigh the rewards for homebuyers in 2025. Limited job opportunities, aging housing, and environmental challenges create a market that doesn't promise long-term stability. For those considering a move, this city is better suited for short-term renting or vacation visits rather than committing to a home purchase. 9. Klamath Falls. Klamath Falls, located in south-central Oregon, has long been known for its proximity to Crater Lake, abundant outdoor recreation, and relatively low housing prices compared to other cities in the state. On the surface, it seems like an affordable escape for those who want wide-open spaces and small-town living. But in 2025, buying here comes with several hidden risks. The biggest concern is the local economy. Klamath Falls has a limited job base, heavily reliant on agriculture, small businesses, and government services. While these industries provide stability for some, they don't create the kind of wage growth or diverse opportunities that drive strong housing markets. This economic fragility means that housing prices, while low, aren't guaranteed to grow in value. For buyers, that translates into weaker long-term investment. Another pressing issue is water. Region has faced water shortage and irrigation conflicts for years, with competing demands from farmers, environmental protections, and residential needs. These disputes aren't just headlines, they directly impact daily life and property values. Rising utility costs, potential restrictions, and uncertainty over long-term water access all add risk for homeowners. Additionally, Klamath Falls has harsher winters than many other Oregon cities, which increases the cost of living. Higher heating bills and added maintenance on homes during freezing conditions can quickly chip away at the affordability that initially draws buyers in. While Klamath Falls offers affordable housing compared to most of Oregon, that affordability comes with trade-offs: a fragile economy, ongoing water disputes, and higher utility costs. For buyers in 2025, it's a market that looks attractive on paper but hides challenges that can make homeownership more costly and less rewarding over time. Section 10. Astoria. Astoria is one of Oregon's most picturesque towns, perched on the Columbia River where it meets the Pacific Ocean. With its historic Victorian homes, maritime charm, and cinematic backdrop, Astoria feels like a dream location. But when it comes to buying a house in 2025, appearances can be deceiving. The biggest challenge is the cost of living. Astoria has become increasingly popular as both a tourist destination and a haven for remote workers who want coastal living. This surge in demand has driven housing prices higher, making it harder for local buyers to compete. What once was a relatively affordable coastal town has now joined the ranks of Oregon's pricier markets. Weather and environment also pose risks. Astoria receives heavy rainfall throughout much of the year, leading to maintenance challenges for homeowners. Mold, leaks, and water damage are common concerns, and upkeep on historic homes can be particularly expensive. Add in the region's exposure to flooding and the looming risk of coastal storms, and homeowners here face costs that stretch far beyond the mortgage. The job market is another weak spot. Astoria's economy leans heavily on tourism, seasonal work, and small-scale industries. While this gives the city charm, it doesn't provide the kind of stability that supports consistent property growth. Buyers relying on long-term appreciation may be disappointed. Astoria's beauty and history make it an appealing place to visit. But for homebuyers in 2025, it carries too many risks: inflated prices, expensive maintenance, and a narrow economic base. It's a reminder that not every charming coastal town is built for sustainable homeownership. Buying a home is more than just signing papers and picking out paint colors. It's one of the biggest financial commitments most people will ever make. And while Oregon has no shortage of natural beauty, outdoor adventures, and communities that seem inviting at first glance, the truth is that not every city is built for long-term stability. From Portland's sky-high prices and congestion, to Medford's wildfire risks, to Astoria's expensive upkeep and fragile economy, each of the 10 cities we've discussed carries its own set of challenges. Some are economic, where job growth doesn't support housing costs. Others are environmental, where wildfires, flooding, or harsh weather turn affordable living into an ongoing financial burden. And in many cases, the problem lies in rapid growth outpacing infrastructure, leaving homeowners to deal with the hidden costs of living in a city that wasn't prepared to expand. The key takeaway here is not that Oregon is a bad place to live. It's that buyers in 2025 need to look beyond the surface appeal. A city might have charming neighborhoods, breathtaking scenery, or a lifestyle that looks perfect on paper, but if the local economy is unstable, if the cost of living is unsustainable, or if the risks outweigh the rewards, then your dream home can quickly turn into a financial trap. That's why research matters more than ever. Before buying in Oregon, or anywhere, look closely at the long-term trends. Housing affordability compared to income, environmental risks and insurance costs, infrastructure growth, and the overall economic health of the city. Don't get caught up in the beauty of the landscape or the excitement of a hot market without considering what those factors will mean for your future. In the end, homeownership should be about stability, security, and building a foundation for the years ahead. And while these 10 Oregon cities may offer scenery, charm, or temporary affordability, they also come with red flags that are hard to ignore. For buyers in 2025, avoiding these pitfalls isn't just smart, it's essential. So whether you're looking to relocate, retire, or invest, make sure you're not just buying into a house, you're buying into a city that supports the life you want to build.